Good morning. Welcome to the King's Report for Wednesday, November 8th, 2017. Tim Miller and sitting in for the second king of Cheongguk, Hyung Moon, and I'm here with Mr. Greg Knoll. Welcome, Greg.
Tim.
Today is we're in the 8th year of Cheongguk and the 9th month and the 20th day now by that heavenly calendar. The weather in the Cheongguk area right now is 36 degrees and cloudy. We had snow here up at this level. Did you have snow there?
No. It didn't really get below 38 degrees, so we just got some rain.
Oh, yeah. So in this area where I live, where my wife and I live, we had snow pretty much all day.
Really?
Yeah, or all afternoon at least, yeah. And then even this morning as I was leaving, there was still some snow on the ground.
Wow.
We live a little bit higher than the Cheongguk.
Yeah, it's a different weather pattern here. Yeah.
Just the temperature difference. So at the Cheongguk area, it's expected to get up to 48 degrees today and down to 25 tonight. Clear, partly cloudy, mainly clear. And then again, 50 degrees and cloudy tomorrow. This weekend, as I've been saying, it's going to get down into the teens in the nighttime lows. We have some Canadian air coming in. And so right now, the forecast for Friday night, Saturday morning, and then again Saturday morning, Sunday morning is 14 degrees for both times, which the king is saying, "Oh, good, now I can sleep outside." Has to be in the teens to sleep outside. So we have that. But for Children's Day, though, I think it's going to be not as cold as you might fear, but it'll be in the low. It'll be in the single digits, though. The highs will be in the single digits.
And Children's Day?
I'm sorry. I'm talking in Celsius again.
I was going to say that doesn't sound good.
I'm talking Celsius again. The 18th, we're looking for a high of 48.
Oh, okay, there we go.
That's 9 degrees Celsius. So that's single digit. I apologize for that. This switch from Korean to English sometimes doesn't quite go completely. 48 on Saturday the 18th as a high, and 47 on Sunday. So should be not too cold, but better dressed warmly anyway. All right, let's go to our Rimas. I'm in the Galatians chapter 4 this morning, starting with verse 8, and we'll be going to verse 12. Yes, I think, no, verse 11. Verse 11. Howbeit then, when ye knew not God, ye did service unto them which by nature are no gods. But now, after that ye have known God, or rather are known of God, how turn ye again to the weak and beggarly elements, whereunto ye desire again to be in bondage? Ye observe days and months and times and years. I am afraid of you, lest I have bestowed upon you labor in vain. So Paul is kind of scolding the Christians in Galatia, saying, I think I wasted my time on you guys. I gave you the gospel of God, the gospel of Jesus Christ, and you came to know God, or rather that you came to be people who were known of God, or who were known by God. And now you're turning back. You're going back to those old ways, going back to the times that you were in bondage. In other words, when you were slaves, and you're observing all these pagan holidays, I guess. And he says, I don't know, you guys. I think I wasted my time for you. But of course, if you really thought that, he wouldn't be writing this letter in the first place. So I guess he still has hope for them.
Chastising.
Yes, he's chastising them for turning back to be slaves. And Moses had a similar problem because when he led the people out of Egypt, then people kept wanting to go back, and they missed their watermelons and stuff like that. And we also, to go out of bondage, actually, living as a slave in some sense is comfortable, right? You eat what you're given, you wear what you're given, you sleep where you're told to sleep, and you do what you're told to do, and basically, at least as long as you have value to the master, he lets you live. He keeps you alive, and he uses you for his purpose. Now, that's a slave. Mm-hmm. And in a sense, a slave lives as long as allows itself to be a slave. It's in some sense, a physically comfortable existence. But to become a child of God, a son or daughter of God, you have to take on your portion of responsibility. You have to, in other words, pay the indemnity and grow. And that's our portion of responsibility, to grow. And that's painful, and that's difficult. And when we are let out of bondage, sometimes we look back. Gee, wasn't that more comfortable back then? Wallowing in sin? No, wasn't that more comfortable? And it is always, Satan is tempting us with that kind of sort of whispering in our ear, with that kind of sweet talk. And I think the people in Galatia were that way. The Israelites coming out of Egypt were that way. And we can be the same way. We can be the same way, that we sort of slide back and don't want to bother with our responsibility, don't want to bother with the pain that is involved in growth.
I think Father also struggled with us. Mm-hmm. Time and time again, he offered these forgiveness ceremonies. Mm-hmm. These, we'd all gather together. We would confess our sins on paper or mm-hmm. whatever, and then Father would forgive us. Mm-hmm. And I was always amazed by that, because Father believed in us, mm-hmm. believed that we could be free, but we kept backsliding, yes. Causing more problems, yes. For him. And but God's hope springs eternal. I always felt at these ceremonies that God believes in us, despite
He refuses to give up on us.
He refuses to give up.
He refuses to give up on us. Even if we give up on ourselves, He refuses to give up on us.
Old habits die hard, and
yes.
This satanic lineage that we come from, is deeply ingrained. We're programmed to think as slaves, and I think it's, in one sense, Father is very gracious and forgiving, because He understands our situation. Coming out of the muck and mire and the dungeons of hell to try to find our true identity as His children is not an easy task. And so I think God has sympathy upon us, because we've been slaves for so long.
Which brings me to our Rima in the Chunseongyong. It's actually related. It says, until now, who has I'm in the book 8, Sin and Restoration Through Indemnity. The very end of this book, very end of chapter 4. One of it's actually on I think probably on the final page or so, and it's on page 1231. Until now, who has completed the payment of indemnity for the portion of responsibility? Can you pay that indemnity with money? Can you pay it by selling your house or your country? Actually, okay. Shall I do this? I have to. He's not saying, can you pay that indemnity with money? He's saying, who has paid that indemnity, or who has conducted the spiritual works of indemnity, and then can you repay that with money? In other words, someone has done it for you. Can you repay that person with money? Mm-hmm. So that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Can you repay it? Let me change that to in the English here. Can you repay that? Can you compensate that person, or can you compensate for that with money? Can you compensate it for it by selling your house in your country? Then what should you do? There is nothing you can do. You can only be absolutely obedient. Mm-hmm. You must be obedient. You must be absolutely obedient until you are in your 20s. No. If you say until you're in your 20s, that means once you're in your 20s, you don't have to do that, right? No, I think Father's saying through the time that you're in your 20s. So up until 29. 29 and 364 days.
I thought it was a lifetime mindset.
Well, anyway, you must be absolutely obedient through your 20s. I'll change that. Adam and Eve insisted on their own way. They had a sexual encounter, thus falling before they reached the age of 20. and before they reached their 20s. They had a sexual encounter by, Father says, by shaking their behinds. That's left out in the English translation. You guys, you have no idea what you're missing. One time I was in, let's read this first. No, let's do it now. I was in the headquarters church, all right, not the Cheonbokgung headquarters church, but in the one in Cheongpa-dong. And Father was speaking, and we were all there, and the Han mother was there in her seat at that time. And Father passed some gas while he was speaking. And sort of, it's rather obvious of what had happened, and so people sort of chuckled and giggled and so forth. And Father says, well, there are two ways that I can reduce stress. There are two ways that I can deal with stress. One is by speaking like this, and one is by passing gas, he basically said. He did say that. And the Han mother turned beet red, and she literally ran off the stage. I don't think that's in the collected sermons of fathers.
No, I missed that.
Yeah, I guess you had to be there, I guess. I think those are probably one of the experiences. Probably, I don't know if that, but that even those kinds of words, Father did not want them to be edited out. He wanted that, if he said that he wanted that to remain.
Sure,
yeah.
That's a good point.
But I have a feeling, I'm not exactly sure the date, so I'm not sure I can find it in the 615 volumes, but I'm pretty sure that even if I do, pretty sure it's not in there. But anyway, that's... So anyway, they had a sexual encounter, he says in the Korean, by shaking their behinds, thus falling before they reached the age of 20. Or before they were in their 20s. Until you reach your 20s, now he says 20s, the translator says, you must be absolutely obedient. Before you reach 20, you must obey. Therefore, children are absolutely obedient, we are told. They are, even if you do not teach them to be like that. They know that if they do not become one with their parents, they will go to ruin. You will go to ruin if you do not become one with God. Listen up, kids. Yes. So that I think relates very much to what Paul was telling the Galatians, that you cannot slide back because indemnity has been paid for you, and Christ died on the cross for you. And I taught you that information. I taught you that gospel. Now you're sliding back. The Father also says that now this indemnity has been paid, and now we need to continue to grow, continue to fulfill our portion of responsibility, so that we can become sons and daughters of God. But in order to do that, at least in the beginning, at least in the beginning of that course, until reach a certain level of maturity, we have to just be absolutely obedient. Then fulfilling then our own portion of responsibility.
Yeah, I think there's always a sense of obedience to our conscience and to doing what is right. I think when we stop listening to our conscience, which Father says on multiple occasions that our conscience is really our guide, then we run into trouble if we disobey that. So I think there's always that pursuit, no matter what age we are, to be obedient.
Yeah, absolutely. Even God, of course, presents the model of absolute obedience, that He is absolutely obedient to His word.
To His principle, yeah.
If He weren't, then He could have simply, after Adam and Eve fell, He could have simply torn everything up and begun again. But no, once He created, He absolutely wanted that, was absolutely obedient to that creation, to that word by which He created. And so that even if it takes a little longer, and even if it's a little messier course, He is going to see this thing through to the end. And as I said, never give up on us, and never allowing us to backslide forever. People who try to run away from God find that they can run, but they cannot hide.
Mm-hmm.
But God will always find them. God will always find us, and He will motivate us to come back. He will lead us back. He will lead us back. People can run pretty far. Some people run pretty far, try to get as far away from God as they can. But then they turn around and they find that God is right behind them, mm-hmm. and refusing to give up.
An awesome God.
He's a pretty stubborn man. He's pretty stubborn. He refuses to give up. Refuses to give up. All right, let's take a break now, and we'll come back with some news from a Chernigood perspective.
Research and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, November 8th, 2017. I'm Tim Elder, and I'm here with Mr. Greg Knoll, and we're here in place of representing or in place of the second king of Chernigood, Hyung Jin-moon. And President Trump has left Korea, and he tweeted 7 hours ago that he's leaving Korea now, heading to China, looking very much forward to meeting and being with President Xi. And so I would assume that he has landed in China by now, although I don't see a confirmation of that anywhere that I can see. But anyway, this is a very important trip, and I'm starting the King's Report this morning with this because providentially I think this is extremely important, mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Chinese Communist Party represents the Red Dragon, mm-hmm. and Trump is basically in the what do you call it, the cave?
The Dragon's Den.
The Dragon's Den, yes, the Red Dragon's Den. That's where he is right now. After being in Japan, where he met a very strong ally in the person of Shinzo Abe, the Prime Minister, then going to Korea, where he met a lukewarm ally, at best, Moon Jae-in. And now he is in the Dragon's Den.
Obviously strategic that he would go to those two countries before China.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was strategic on the part of Xi Jinping that he got South Korea to make important concessions, mm-hmm. before Trump arrived there.
Yeah.
Promising not to deploy any further THAAD missile defense systems, promising not to become a part of the U.S. Missile defense regime or missile defense program, and promising that any military cooperation between U.S., Korea, and Japan would not develop into a military alliance. So basically, before Trump got to Korea, China got South Korea to put certain limitations on the discussions with the United States. Mm-hmm. This was a very sort of strong move by China, and it's very disappointing that South Korea sort of, literally kowtowed to China before Trump visited, and Moon Jae-in showed himself to be perhaps, I don't know, is it too much to say, more of an ally with China than with the U.S.? I don't know. But certainly he showed his colors, that's for sure.
Well, they got a little taste of sanctions from China in the last year, which hurt their economy. So I think he's trying to play.
It's the Egyptian watermelons, I tell you. So the Egyptian watermelons.
He's trying to play both sides.
Well, yeah, and he says he's not. He sort of goes back and forth. Yeah, he says he's not. But now, I've learned in the past few days that Camp Humphreys now in the new military headquarters for the U.S. in South Korea is now the largest U.S. base anywhere in the world outside of the United States. And so,
and where is that position?
This is in Pyeongtaek, so it's south of Seoul, and this is part of the trend of the U.S. to move its troops south of Seoul, south of the Han River. Whereas, in the 70s, even through part of the 80s, U.S. troops were guarding much of the DMZ and especially Panmunjom and so forth, and the U.S. troops had bases up there near the DMZ. And they still have small bases, I think, but Yongsan base in Seoul was a very large base and was the major military presence in Korea. But now all that's been moved south of the Han River, south of Seoul, to a more defendable position, you can say. It's out of range of the artillery, at least, of the long-range artillery.
Seoul is the first line of defense.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, well, yeah, I guess so.
The human shields.
Yes. But the fact that Camp Humphreys was built and now apparently can accommodate 40,000 troops and dependents and other sort of people there, so it can accommodate 40,000. And this large base now is located on the Korean Peninsula, is certainly a statement that the United States intends to stay in Northeast Asia for a long time. So that's a message to China, not just to North Korea. But as I look at it, I really feel now that China's intention, China's strategy right now, is to bring South Korea under its umbrella. And of course that will involve removing U.S. troops from the peninsula, and then and other things, but that would be the major step. And then once South Korea is clearly under its umbrella, then uniting the Korean Peninsula, centering on South Korea, so that a united Korea will be prosperous and under Chinese control. So it's kind of the Hong Kongization of Korea.
Does China have like some kind of historical claim on the Koreas?
It claims it has a historical claim, yes. That is a very sensitive issue. Yes, there's some Chinese maps that show, that historically Korea is part of China. And, of course, the Manchus did, during the Manchurian invasion, the Manchus did sort of control, have a pretty tight control over Korea. But don't ever say this to a Korean. It would start a war.
How long ago was it?
Let's not talk too much about that. Yeah, you can study Korean history. But there is an Independence Gate in Korea, in Seoul, which represents Korea's independence from China at the end of the 19th century. And I think it's not too distant future that gate is going to come down. I think that gate's going to come down.
Ago.
It's going to come down. Yeah. But anyway, so President Trump is there in the Red Dragon's Den, and before he went, he spoke at the National Assembly of Korea, And I wanted to go through some of this was, I think, broadcast live on Fox, I believe. And President Trump was also tweeting excerpts from that on his Twitter account, so you can see those. My wife and I read the entire speech in Korean during the Korean portion of this morning's broadcast. And the first part, he goes through the usual things that presidential speechwriters always go through when they're addressing a Korean crowd, about how, the Korean War, we bled together, we died together, et cetera, and Korea has really, really done very well as a U.S. ally, and more than 36,000 Americans died in the Korean War, 100,000, more than 100,000 others badly wounded, and how, Seoul was reduced to rubble then, but look at it now. And look how much better you're doing than North Korea. And he says also, currently stationed in the vicinity of this peninsula are the 3 largest aircraft carriers in the world, loaded to the maximum with magnificent F-35 and F-18 fighter jets. So yeah, right now, I think to protect the president, the U.S. Navy has really mobilized itself, Navy and Marines. And fortunately, he was able to go to Korea. He tried to go to the DMZ, actually. He said he wasn't going to go, but then all that was a cover, and he tried to go. But then the helicopter was just a couple minutes away from landing, and they had to turn back because of weather. It was too foggy. And according to the reports, he couldn't go there by car because of security concerns. So President Moon Jae-in was actually there waiting for him. Moon Jae-in went up there by car at the DMZ. And so he was going to go there, and he was going to have a little face-off, with Kim Jong-un. But apparently he was very disappointed and frustrated that he wasn't able to do that. But anyway, the fog sort of threw a wrench in that, and he was not able to go. So in addition to the aircraft carriers, he also has submarines appropriately positioned, he says. And he says, I want a peace through strength. We are helping the Republic of Korea far beyond what any other country has ever done. And in the end, we will work things out far better than anybody understands or can even appreciate. So yeah, you're telling the Koreans, hey, don't listen to China. Don't listen to China. I know that the Republic of Korea, which has become a tremendously successful nation, will be a faithful ally of the United States very long into the future. So we see that Trump is capable of lying. That's a lie. That's a lie.
Well, the Korean people seem like they're placing their bets on China.
They are the majority, yes.
Yeah.
The majority, yes. Because after all, through most of our history, we were slaves to China. So, and that was more comfortable. It's more comfortable.
We can trust them.
Yeah, Kim Dae-jung used to say, the worst peace is better than war. This was one of Kim Dae-jung's sayings, former president of South Korea. The worst peace. But that means peace in slavery is better than fighting to be free.
Not a real righteous stand.
Right, it's not. But that's the kind of speech that gets you the Nobel Peace Prize. I think Kim Dae-jung, I think he did get the Nobel Peace Prize. So many Koreans, I think, would maybe agree with that we'd rather be slave to China than have to go through the difficulties of fighting for freedom. So anyway, he goes through, continuing here, saying good things about Korea. 40,000 books this year. I don't know why that got in there. Korean authors penned roughly 40,000 books this year. Korean musicians will fill concerts all around the world. I don't know why that got in there. But anyway, he continues to say good things here, and then he sort of segues into North Korea. 25 miles to the north, there this miracle stops. It comes to an end, a dead stop. The flourishing ends, and the prison state of North Korea sadly begins. Then he gives us some information about North Korea. Workers in North Korea labor grueling hours in unbearable conditions for almost no pay. Recently, the entire working population was ordered to work for 70 days straight or else pay for a day of rest. Families live in homes without plumbing and fewer than half have electricity. Parents bribe teachers in hopes of saving their sons and daughters from forced labor. More than 1 million North Koreans died of famine in the 1990s, and more continue to die of hunger today. Among children under the age of 5, nearly 30% are afflicted and are afflicted by stunted growth due to malnutrition. Going on about North Korea, a small infraction by one citizen, such as accidentally staining a picture of the tyrant printed in a discarded newspaper, can wreck the social credit rank of his entire family for many decades. An estimated 100,000 North Koreans suffer in gulags, toiling in forced labor, and enduring torture, starvation, rape, and murder on a constant basis. In one known instance, a 9-year-old boy was imprisoned for 10 years because his grandfather was accused of treason. In another, a student was beaten in school for forgetting a single detail about the life of Kim Jong-un. Soldiers have kidnapped foreigners and forced them to work as language tutors for North Korean spies, and so forth. And in part,
this was all in Trump's speech?
Yeah, this was all in Trump's speech, yeah. So he's giving us some information. And there's one paragraph here where he mentions God. But before that, though, before we get to that, he continues on about North Korea. He spends much of the time criticizing North Korea. And he says about in South Korea, here the strength of the nation does not come from the false glory of a tyrant. That could also apply to China. It comes from the true and powerful glory of a strong and great people, the people of the Republic of Korea, a Korean people who are free to live, to flourish, to worship, to love, to build, and to grow their own destiny. In this republic, the people have done what no dictator ever could. You took, with the help of the United States, responsibility for yourselves. You see, responsibility, that tough word. And ownership of your future, and ownership. You had a dream, a Korean dream, and you built that dream into a great reality. In so doing, you performed the miracle of the Han that we see all around us, from the stunning skyline of Seoul to the plains and peaks of this beautiful landscape. You have done it freely, you have done it happily, and you have done it in your own very beautiful way. Since the so-called armistice, there have been hundreds of North Korean attacks on Americans and South Koreans. These attacks have included the capture and torture of the brave American soldiers of the USS Pueblo. Significant that he mentioned the Pueblo. That's back in the 60s when a small U.S. Navy vessel was captured by the North Koreans. It was basically a kind of a signal intelligence vessel spying on North Korea in waters near the Korean Peninsula, and the North Koreans managed to capture it. And it's still on display in North Korea. It's kind of their big trophy. And the 1969 downing of a U.S. surveillance plane that killed 31 American servicemen. The regime has made numerous lethal incursions into South Korea, attempted to assassinate senior leaders, including a attempted attack on the Blue House, the South Korean presidential palace, in the late 60s, where they got very close. They dressed up as South Korean soldiers and came down across the demilitarized zone and marched all the way, infiltrated all the way to the presidential palace in Seoul. And there was actually a shootout in front of the gates of the presidential palace. And one man, of course, one North Korean survived that attack. Everyone else was killed. And he is now a Christian pastor in South Korea.
Really?
And wow. I don't know if he's still alive, but foreign correspondence, that was sort of always the thing that you had to do once you became a foreign correspondent in Seoul, was to interview this guy. Tell us about North Korea. This kind of thing.
Well, there's a lot of defectors now.
There are. North Koreans go to China, they run away to China, and then they go, usually sometimes directly from China, but more often through Southeast Asia. They make their way all the way down to Southeast Asia, and then come in through Thailand or Singapore or these kind of countries. The North Korean regime has pursued its nuclear and ballistic missile program in defiance of every assurance, agreement, and commitment it has made to the United States and its allies. It's broken all those commitments after promising to freeze its plutonium program in 1994. Wake up, Clinton. They're talking about you. It repeated the benefits of the deal, and then it reaped, actually, this is a misprint here, reaped the benefits of the deal, and then immediately continued its illicit nuclear activities. In 2005, after after years of diplomacy, the dictatorship agreed to ultimately to abandon its nuclear programs and return to the Treaty on Non-Proliferation, but it never did, and worse, it tested the very weapons it said it was going to give up. In 2009, the United States gave negotiations yet another chance, Obama, and offered North Korea the open hand of engagement. The regime responded by sinking a South Korean Navy ship, killing 46 Korean sailors. To this day, it continues to launch missiles over the sovereign territory of Japan, and all other neighbors test nuclear devices and develop ICBMs to threaten the United States itself. The regime has interpreted America's past restraint as weakness. This would be a fatal miscalculation. This is a very different administration than the United States has had in the past. Today, I hope I speak not only for our countries, but for all civilized nations when I say to the North, do not underestimate us and do not try us. We will defend our common security, our shared prosperity, and our sacred liberty. We did not choose to draw here on this peninsula, this magnificent peninsula, the thin line of civilization that runs around the world and down through time. But here it was drawn, and here it remains to this day. The line between God and Satan. Mm-hmm. It is the line between peace and war, between decency and depravity, between law and tyranny, between hope and total despair. It is a line that has been drawn many times in many places throughout history. To hold that line is a choice free nations have always had to make. See, it's that responsibility, the difficult choice of growth and of defending freedom and of defending what belongs to God, and fighting against Satan. This is what he's talking about. We learned together the high cost of weakness and the high stakes of its defense. America's men and women in uniform have given their lives in the fight against Nazism, imperialism, communism, and terrorism. America does not seek conflict or confrontation, but we will never run from it. History is filled with discarded regimes that have foolishly tested America's resolve. Anyone who doubts the strength or determination of the United States should look to our past, and you will doubt it no longer. Wake up, Xi Jinping. This is for you. We will not permit America or our allies to be blackmailed or attacked. We will not allow American cities to be threatened with destruction. We will not be intimidated, and we will not let the worst atrocities in history be repeated here on this ground we fought and died so hard to secure. This is why I come here to the heart of a free and flourishing Korea with a message for the peace-loving nations of the world. The time for excuses is over. Now is the time for strength. If you want peace, you must stand strong at all times.
Sheepdog.
Yeah. The world cannot tolerate the menace of a rogue regime that threatens with nuclear devastation. All responsible nations must join forces to isolate the brutal regime of North Korea, to deny it, and any form of it you cannot support, you cannot supply, you cannot accept. Of course, freedom-loving nations also have to isolate China, and that's actually the bigger thing here. Mm-hmm. But he's on his way to China, so he's not. But he's implying, but he's not really saying. We call on every nation, including China and Russia, he says, okay, to fully implement UN Security Council resolutions, downgrade diplomatic relations with the regime, and sever all ties of trade and technology. It is our responsibility and our duty to confront this danger together, because the longer we wait, the greater the danger grows, and the fewer the options become. And to those nations that choose to ignore this threat, or worse still, to enable it, the weight of this crisis is on your conscience. I also have come here to this peninsula to deliver a message directly to the leader of the North Korean dictatorship. The weapons you are acquiring are not making you safer. They are putting your regime in grave danger. Every step you take down this dark path increases the peril you face. North Korea is not the paradise your grandfather envisioned. It is a hell that no person deserves. Yet despite every crime you have committed against God and man, you are ready to offer, and we will do that. We will offer a path to a much better future. It begins with an end to the aggression of your regime, a stop to your development of ballistic missiles, and complete, verifiable, and total denuclearization. The skytop view of this peninsula shows a nation of dazzling light in the south and a mass of impenetrable darkness in the north. We seek a future of light, prosperity, and peace, but we are only prepared to discuss this brighter path for North Korea if its leaders cease their threats and dismantle their nuclear program. The sinister regime of North Korea is right about only one thing. The Korean people do have a glorious destiny, but they cannot be more wrong about what that destiny looks like. The destiny of the Korean people is not to suffer in the bondage of oppression, but to thrive in the glory of freedom. If they so choose. If they so choose. If they so choose. What South Koreans have achieved on this peninsula is more than a victory for your nation. It is a victory for every nation that believes in the human spirit, and it is our hope that someday soon all of your brothers and sisters of the North will be able to enjoy the fullest life intended by God.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So he goes on, saying more good things about Korea. Your republic shows us all that is possible in just a few decades, etc., etc. Korea stands strong. Together we dream of a Korea that is free, a peninsula that is safe, and families are reunited once again. We dream of highways connecting north and south. Oh, international highway. Of cousins embracing cousins and nuclear nightmare replaced with the beautiful promise of peace. Until that day comes, we stand strong and alert. Our eyes are fixed to the north, and our hearts praying for the day when all Koreans can live in freedom. Thank you. God bless you. God bless the Korean people. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, it's becoming clearer and clearer that the Korean Peninsula, I think, is going to be united soon. I don't think that the current status quo is going to continue for very long. But the question now is, will it be united as an ally of the United States and other freedom-loving countries, or as an ally of China, in bondage to China?
He didn't really address that in his speech. He didn't really confront this strong alliance between South Korea and China.
No, he didn't, and that would be, it's probably. I mean, he's on his way to China now. He's in China now.
He's on his way to China, and also he wanted to emphasize the North Korean situation.
Yeah. But
I think makes sense.
But he implied it. He implied it. He implied that you have a choice, that you fought so hard to establish all this prosperity, and prosperity comes as a result of your freedom
and your alliance with the United States.
And your alliance with the United States, and I think he did give a message there that South Korea needs to stay with the United States and not go to China.
Whereas South Korea feels like they can play both.
Moon Jae-in feels that way. Yeah, Moon Jae-in certainly feels that way, and probably maybe a majority of Koreans feel that way. I don't know, but certainly a lot of Koreans feel that way. Yes.
Yeah.
And that historically, they're closer to China than to the United States. After all, America's all the way across the other side of the ocean. There is that. Certainly, there is that danger that they will choose China over America. Yes.
And everybody drools over doing commerce with such a large population that, in one sense, economically, if you're South Korea, you can't really ignore China. Large part of their prosperity has been opening up trade relations with China.
China is the largest trading partner for South Korea now. Yes.
Yeah. So it's understandable that they would think that, but you look a little bit deeper and you can see that China is very much a communist state, very much controls its citizens, and anybody that steps out of line is deep in trouble.
Yeah, it harvests organs,
Yep.
organ harvesting, the censorship of the internet, and censorship of all aspects of communication and free expression. The fact that religions have to follow the guidance of the Communist Party. The fact that the military owes its allegiance to the Communist Party, not to the government or the state of People's Republic of China, but to the Communist Party. And even the government owes its allegiance to the Communist Party. So that, I think, it's not a country that you would want to be allied to. But the truth about China is often not known. I guess it's because the money is too good, I guess. The money is just too good.
Right.
Yeah. And Xi Jinping, in his address to the Communist Party Congress recently, clearly put out a vision that China will become a superpower by 2050, and to do that, he has to deal with the United States. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure he's thinking of ways to do that. And certainly, getting hold of the entire Korean Peninsula is a very important step in that. If you look at the location of the South Korean island of Jeju, it's located in just the right spot to be able to threaten the U.S. naval fleet that's based in Sasebo, in Japan's Kyushu island. So that is a very strategic location, very strategic. It would be a very strategic base that, if China could have a naval base on Jeju Island, that would be very important for them to, in their quest to become the leading country in the world. And even, Camp Humphreys apparently costs more than $10 billion to build, and the South Koreans paid 92% of that, they say. I just hope that Chinese troops don't wind up using it in the future.
It's not unthinkable.
Not unthinkable at all. Not unthinkable at all. If Korea does not make the right choices, it is not unthinkable at all.
How many times did our technology end up in the hands of ISIS,
yes.
Al-Qaeda?
Yes.
Smaller scale, but this would certainly be possible if South Korea continues its strong alliance with China.
Yes. All right, let's take a break now, and we'll come back in a minute or so with more news from a Choniga perspective.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology, it's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood, the history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun, to the best in compact concealed carry, Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today. Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology, it's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood, the history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun, to the best in compact concealed carry, Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today. Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology, it's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood, the history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun, to the best in compact concealed carry, Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Carr Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit carr.com today.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, November 8th, 2017. I'm Tim Elder with Greg Knoll here for the second king of Hyung Jin-moon. And we have to talk about the Republican Night of Horror. Didn't go very well for the Republicans.
No.
Dem victories coast to coast. Virginia, Gillespie loses by 8 points. Trump only lost by 5. New Jersey, Christie Lieutenant cruised in governor's race. Crushed in governor's race. Trans candidate tops longtime Republican incumbent. I think that was in Virginia too. De Blasio wins second term as New York City mayor. Maine becomes first state to expand Medicaid by referendum. And the leftist media, of course, is saying that, this is a rejection of Trumpism, whereas Breitbart is saying this was a failure of the Republican establishment to embrace Trumpism. And so this was a loss that the Republican establishment wanted so that they could try to tamp down the fight against establishment politics. Kassam says a GOP swamp got the loss they wanted. Now they're going to try and tame us. This is a piece by Kassam, what is his name? Kassam. Let's go through this. Earlier on Tuesday, Republicans under notional terms, runts. Apparently this is a new term. Republicans under notional terms, runts, like Bill Kristol and Evan McMillan, took to social media to discourage people thinking of voting for Ed Gillespie. They wouldn't have made a massive impact, if any, in the race, but they got what they wanted, a Democratic Virginia governor, an upset for the Republican Party under Trump, and a chance to pretend, quote, this is a sign we need moderate candidates, unquote. Bizarrely, laughably even, the pair decided that former lobbyist Ed Gillespie was too pro-Trump. Ha! The truth couldn't be more opposite if it tried. Gillespie, as Trump noted late on Tuesday night, was scarcely a MAGA candidate, and the operation the Virginia GOP put down in the state was nowhere near the Obama for America-style blitzkrieg campaign they needed to win. While turnout was up across the state, it wasn't up by enough for the Republicans in the areas the Republicans needed it to be up enough by. The other problem, of course, was one of authenticity. Gillespie had none or very little. His big bump came too late after he was attacked by the Latino Victory Fund as someone who might mow down young ethnic minority voters while sporting a Confederate flag and a Gadsden license plate. Maybe he is one of us after all, thought Republicans who saw that ad. Not that they're in the business of running over children. Seriously, guys, WTF. But they are in the business of being lied about, maligned, and marginalized. When it started happening to Gillespie, they began to feel a camaraderie with him. But while the Democrats turned Virginia into a sanctuary state, the bigger risk Republicans face is their own civil war. With hardline globalists not so secretly popping bottles of cheap champagne tonight, the conservative base needs to fight even harder to reject the McMuffin crystal axis in their midst. We told you so, they'll scream. In fact, they won't be able to explain why more authentic MAGA candidates like Jill Vogel received a better reception and a higher percentage of the vote than Gillespie, and why Gillespie probably dragged her numbers down further than where they would have been. And because the truth is that Virginia GOP lacks the kind of organization and their candidate lacked the kind of authenticity it takes for conservatives to win elections in government employee and liberal city-dominated states such as Virginia. It's not a lost cause yet, but if the runts get their way, it very much will be. So that was the Breitbart News take on the big loss for Republican candidates across the country yesterday. For example, AFP, I think, is a pretty typical way in which a left-wing media is covering this. U.S. Democrats claimed a resounding win Tuesday in a crucial governor's race in Virginia, dealing a blow to Donald Trump's politics of division and testing the president's influence ahead of larger battles in 2018 and 2020.
That's what it's all about, right?
That's what it's all about, isn't it?
Discrediting Trump. Don't align yourself with Trump, otherwise you're gonna lose.
The marquee race has national ramifications as a test for the Republican Party and their combative leader, and Democrats came out on top. This is supposed to be, this is a news service, for crying out loud. They're supposed to be neutral. And yet they're very non-neutral. You can tell that, I don't know if she drank the champagne before or after she wrote that story. I don't know. Anyway, so that is the thing yesterday. In New Jersey as well, of course, a Democrat won the governor's race there, so anyway, it was a good time for Democrats finally after a year, because they were losing, the House by-elections. I think they lost about 4, didn't they? Mm-hmm. And then. But now, after a year, they finally have some victories, and so they're celebrating.
And recently, there's been some rhinos retiring.
Yes.
Not seeking re-election. So that was the beginning of the momentum. Yeah.
I think the Breitbart article is right, that now the Republican rhinos will say, see what happens when you become too extreme.
Right.
You become marginalized. But they need to remember how the Republican Party won the presidency last year. Mm-hmm. It was not by espousing establishment values. It was by appealing to the Christian values of the common working man, the Christian values the Judeo-Christian values that made this country great. And if the establishment has their way and they're able to use this bad result yesterday to reject Trumpism, to reject Trump, then certainly the country as a whole will be in deep trouble.
Yeah, this has to happen in terms of draining the swamp, because the swamp cannot be drained if the Rhino Republicans remain in power.
Right, yes. We have some good news here. LAPD investigating pedophile ring after Corey Feldman files a formal report. Page 6, a Weinstein indictment next week, ? The lawyer plot to discredit Harvey accusers. Another allegation reported to London police. Gay Talese rips actor that ruined Kevin Spacey career. Jesus, suck it up. Hollywood racked by chaos in aftermath of sex scandals. So I saw one article that said that by that person's count, more than 90 people have come forward with regard to Weinstein, and so dozens of people are coming forward now saying that they were also harassed or raped or so forth, and it's really shaking Hollywood to the core. I believe we'll see. I don't know. Daily Mail reporting exclusive that LAPD confirms they are investigated Hollywood pedophile ring after Corey Feldman files formal report. So wow, yeah, good for Corey Feldman.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of his friends committed suicide, or was a drug overdose, I guess. Another child star who was also the victim of that kind of pedophilia. So I think. It's unfortunate that he's still not alive to collaborate with, Corey's story. But that oftentimes is the result of abuse. You get into drugs and alcohol and oftentimes end up dead.
The Los Angeles Police Department has investigated a rumored Hollywood pedophile ring after Corey Feldman filed a formal police report identifying the men he claims sexually abused him as a child. Quote, Corey Feldman filed a report with the Los Angeles Police Department. There is no further information at this time, and his report is being investigated, unquote, a spokesman told DailyMail.com on Tuesday. Feldman revealed he had filed a report on Monday. Then quoting Feldman's Twitter, important campaign update. I just completed a formal sit-down interview with LAPD HQ Special Division and gave them all the info I know. This was officially the first formal report ever taken on any of my cases, as SBPD never followed up back in 1993 and has no record of my complaints, wrote an animated Feldman on Twitter. He then added, the LAPD will begin an official investigation now. Things are heating up. I'm praying for safety. Just last week, Feldman revealed the identities of 2 alleged child molesters he claims took advantage of him and other adolescent screen stars years ago. And then let's see if there's anything else here. Feldman said on the Dr. Oz show last Thursday that his former assistant, John Grissom, was the first to take advantage of him in the 1980s, adding that the man still posts photos of him online. This guy on this guy on his My Face page and his Facebook page has got pictures of me and Corey Haim, Feldman said during the interview. He still taunts it and flaunts it. Dr. Oz then revealed that Grissom, who is now living in Mexico, has a long history of criminal behavior. Everything from assault, theft, drugs. In 2001, he was arrested on child molestation charges. He was found guilty in 2003 and served time in prison, said an attorney for the program in a video posted to Facebook. Feldman also named former child talent manager and convicted sex offender Marty Weiss, who had revealed in the past. That was the same Marty Weiss that we saw in the video. Yeah.
That documentary, yeah.
That documentary, yes, that was played during Sunday service. What was that, last week, last Sunday or week? Two Sundays ago. The actor has told multiple media outlets last week that he reported members of a supposed Hollywood pedophile ring back in 1993 with the Santa Barbara Police Department. That claim was disputed, however, by police, and Dr. Oz confronted Feldman with this information. I called the Santa Barbara police, just got off the phone with them. As you were speaking, I was speaking. You claimed that you spoke to them about your abuse in 1993. Just to be clear, said Dr. Oz. Feldman then interrupts him to state, it's on the record. Dr. Oz continued, and you named names. I listened to the recording and I did not hear you name names. Feldman responded by claiming that police turned off the recording device when he shared the identity of his molesters, which Dr. Oz accepts as true. He then pleaded with Feldman to reach out to the authorities again, at which point the actor makes the decision to call the Los Angeles Police Department and name the 2 men who allegedly assaulted him and other minors. It was during this call that Feldman revealed Grissom is allegedly still posting photos of him and Ham on his social media accounts. Dr. Oz read a statement from police disputing Feldman's claim during the interview. We are aware of the statements that Mr. Feldman is making regarding an investigation in 1993. Our records do not indicate that he named any suspects, stated Dr. Oz, reading from the official statement he was given by a spokesperson from the Santa Barbara Police Department. He then told Feldman, they want you to reach out to them. Would you call them after the show? Feldman responded by saying, absolutely. Dr. Oz then pressed him on the question many have wondered, asking, why haven't you already called them and said, guys, I said this to you. How can you not at least acknowledge? Feldman replied by explaining, because we haven't acknowledged it until today, and they are acknowledging it by saying they don't have any recollection. The host looks a bit shocked when he hears this response, and Feldman goes on to say, well, I think it's the first day that I think anybody has gone to them for a comment, but it's the first time I've heard any recount from them at all. DailyMail.com also went to the Santa Barbara Police Department for a comment and received the same statement as Dr. Oz. The 2 men then head backstage to make the call, which can be seen in full on Thursday. Feldman stopped by Megyn Kelly today on Monday, where he spoke about telling police the names of these predators over 2 decades ago while being questioned about his friend Michael Jackson. In 1993, I told the Santa Barbara Police Department when they came to interrogate me about Michael Jackson, when they came to convince me that he was a pedophile, and I said, he's not, said Feldman. And I said, I've been molested. They said, by who? And I said, I can give you names. Here they are. And they said, that's not our area. That's outside our community. He had previously told Matt Lauer in an interview earlier that, I guess it means that day, sometimes the editing of these online articles is not so good. If I were to go to the police, I would be the one who's getting sued. Henceforth, I need a team of lawyers. I need a team of security to be around me at all times to keep me safe so I can get this message done. I vow I will release every single name that I have any knowledge of, period. Feldman also blamed the media and police for lack of movement on outing these pedophiles, who he holds responsible for Haim's battles with drugs and alcohol, which led to his death. Haim was one of the biggest stars of the 1980s, with leading roles in films including Lucas, Watchers, and the Oscar-nominated Murphy's Romance, which he starred in alongside Sally Field and James Garner. The boys first worked together on the 1987 vampire flick The Lost Boys, and paired up again in the films License to Drive and Dream a Little Dream. Haim was quite the ladies' man, too, over the years, dating Alyssa Milano, Nicole Eggert, Holly Fields, and even Victoria Beckham at one point. Feldman and Haim had a chance to share the screen once more in 2007 with their reality show The Two Coreys, which was canceled after 2 seasons. It was a little over a year after that last season aired that Haim died as a result of drug-induced pneumonia. Feldman detailed Haim's struggle with drugs as well as his own in his 2013 memoir, Choreography. In that book, he revealed that the first time they tried cocaine was with 2 of the men who were abusing them. Feldman also wrote in the book about Haim having sex with adult men on the set of Lucas and The Lost Boys, sharing a story he claims Haim told him one of the first times they met. At some point during the filming of Lucas, he explained an adult male convinced him that it was perfectly normal for older men and younger boys in the business to have sexual relations, that it was what all guys do, wrote Feldman. So they walked off to a secluded area between 2 trailers during a lunch break for the cast and crew, and Haim, innocent and ambitious as he was, allowed himself to be sodomized. Feldman also wrote about Haim spending time with Weiss while they were filming The Lost Boys. He claimed in the book that one day on the set, Haim, who was 15 during the filming, was aroused and wanted to have sex. "Marty's gay, why don't you ask him?" wrote Feldman. The 2 walked single file into the adjoining room. I heard sounds, banging, thumping. I felt my stomach flip-flop. I felt sick. Weiss was arrested in 2011 after one of the clients told police he had been sexually abused by the man starting when he was just 11 years old, claiming the incidents happened 30 to 40 times over a roughly 3-year period. He eventually pleaded no contest to 2 counts of child molestation in 2012 and was sentenced to a year in jail and 5 years probation. Weiss was immediately released after entering his plea.
1 year in jail and not even served time.
Weiss was immediately released after entering his plea for time served.
Unbelievable.
Feldman also detailed a night when he allegedly received oral sex from a man after he was fed a cocktail of drugs. The abuse at the hands of that man, who he called Ron in his book, went on for years after that first incident. I don't know why I couldn't confront Ron, but I was consumed with guilt. I felt like the whole thing was my fault, wrote Feldman. I desperately wanted him to stop, but I was afraid of losing my friend. Feldman said in his book that he did at one point name some of the men who abused himself and Haim to authorities, but claimed that they chose to ignore the allegations and allow the statute of limitations to run out without conducting an investigation or pressing any charges. So that's the article there.
Sick culture.
Yeah, really, I think we need to think about this every time we choose to go and watch a Hollywood movie. Yeah.
Or turn on a Disney show.
Turn on a Disney show or Nickelodeon.
Yeah, all these sitcoms. It's all the same. Anti-God, anti-religion propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
It's really sick. It's a satanic message that we need to just like the NFL, we need to walk away.
Yeah.
This
and
really
NFL,
bad.
I think Monday night football ratings are still going down or still at a low point. Yeah.
This is the only thing that people will pay attention to. So we do have power in that regard.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's take a break, and we'll come back after this with some headlines and more news from a Tony perspective.
research, and auto ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood, the history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun, to the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, November 8th, 2017. Tim Elder and Greg Knoll here, and for the second king of Cheongguk, Hyung Moon. And we have kind of an abbreviated hour-and-a-half program today, so we need to get through some of the headlines. First Arctic blast coming this weekend, we know that. And lab-grown insects to be released to kill off mosquitoes. I don't know. Fooling with Mother Nature. Never a good idea, is it? Never a good idea. These lab-grown insects are going to kill off mosquitoes, and then what? What happens? Besides, what? We have birds, right?
Yeah.
We have birds to kill off mosquitoes. We have spiders, spider webs.
We should try to increase populations of good birds.
Yes.
Rather than
this lab-grown insects thing.
It's not a good idea.
I tell you. Yeah.
Unintended consequences, right?
Yes.
That's what that's called.
God knows best.
Yep.
As I used to tell my teenage girls when they kept changing the color of their hair. But anyway, EPA approves bacteria-infected insects to kill mosquitoes. No one likes the idea of being bitten by mosquito, especially if the pesky pest is also carrying around viruses. But what if you could eradicate the disease insects by releasing assassin versions of mosquitoes to kill them off? On November 3rd, the Environmental Protection Agency approved a new approach from the biotech company MosquitoMate. Biotech company. The goal is to destroy populations of wild mosquitoes that could be carrying nasty viruses, according to a report from what are the birds going to eat then?
They'll probably end up eating these nasty man-made bugs and become sterile. That would be my guess. That's a real possibility.
Instead of relying on genetic engineering, MosquitoMate infects lab-grown mosquitoes with the common bacterium Wolbachia something or other, which affects mosquitoes but not animals or humans. Where have we heard that before?
Wonder if Monsanto owns this company.
I don't know. MosquitoMate. The Wolbachia, that sounds like something out of Star Wars, doesn't it? Wolbachia. Infected male mosquitoes which don't bite mate with the wild populations of female Asian tiger mosquitoes which do bite. The eggs fertilized by MosquitoMate's male mosquitoes won't hatch because the paternal chromosomes don't form properly due to the effects of the bacterium. Okay.
We'll have a Lyme disease on our hands in 10 years.
Yes. Yes. Texas shooter, update on the Texas shooting massacre. Texas shooter yelled, "Everybody die, mother effer." Checked each aisle, shot crying babies, point blank. Escaped mental hospital. Church security scrutinized after massacre. I hear some pastors are thinking of carrying.
Not a bad idea.
Not a bad idea. Do you know any pastor that carries? I think we do.
Yes.
Pope, here we go again. Lift up hearts, not cell phones. Record surge in Obamacare enrollments. A Saudi crackdown targets up to $800 billion in assets. Dining with al-Walid in desert before arrest. And Menendez juror asked judge, what do you suppose the question was? See, this senator from New Jersey is being tried on corruption charges. And the prosecutor gave their evidence, the defense gave their rebuttal, and everything like that. And then the jury went into the jury room to debate, or to talk about, discuss, try to come to a verdict on this. And they sent out a question to the judge. What do you suppose the question was?
Does the jury send out a question?
Yes, the jury sent out a question to the judge. They needed information from the judge.
Okay. Go ahead.
What is a senator?
I'm sure that made Menendez feel really confident.
Not kidding. Can you define a senator? Was the question.
Well, you could maybe think of one jurist having that question.
Well, even one.
But all of them sent the question in?
Well,
couldn't one of them answer the question?
So the judge's answer was, please rely on your own memory.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. There was
Does that mean the judge didn't know?
Someone was saying, the jury pool is chosen from people who are registered to vote. They take the list of people who are registered to vote, and they choose the jury from that pool, all right? Mm-hmm. So this means that someone who was probably was just one juror, all right? And I'm sure the 11 other people just sort of rolled their eyes.
I see.
But he insisted because, he didn't want to take anybody else's word for it because they never heard of this thing called senator. Well, I don't know. He wasn't sure what a senator was, I guess. Mm-hmm. But still, kind of amazing, isn't it? Or maybe this is where we are. Mm-hmm. Maybe, I think maybe civics has been, civics no longer taught in schools.
It went out with woodworking, I think.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So maybe some people really don't know what a senator is, people who are registered to vote. Mm-hmm. I remember when I first started writing newspaper articles, I was advised to write as if I was writing for someone in about the 8th grade. That was the advice I was given. But I think that was about 30 or so years ago. I think 8th graders back then knew what a senator was. Mm-hmm. Maybe 8th graders today don't know. I don't know. We'll have to take a poll, right?
You see these surveys or these journalists that go out and ask really simple questions. Yeah. Many, many people get them wrong.
Sometimes I think they're acting.
They probably are, yeah. It's hard
because they want to get on TV.
Right.
Yeah. But maybe that's not true. Maybe they aren't acting. I don't know.
Well,
so
you saw that one where Bernie Sanders' tax plan versus Trump tax plan.
Yeah. Well, that's something that people could. I can see that happening.
Yeah, that one is legit
because they don't read either one.
Right.
They're just going to say, okay, anything that Bernie puts out is good. Anything that Trump puts out is bad. So if you say, okay, this is what Bernie put out, he says, yeah, okay, I'll go along with it.
Without really thinking about
it, yeah. But when it was Trump, then racist, Nazi. So there's these automatic reactions that people have.
Mm-hmm.
More people ditching smartphones, turning to less distracting dumb phones.
I have a hard time imagining that.
No.
Those smartphones are very addictive.
Uber partners with NASA on flying taxis. Jetsons. Remember Jetsons?
That's right. Great show.
Yes. And Rand Paul still doesn't know what prompted his neighbor to attack him. San Diego hepatitis outbreak continues to grow. Wall Street gushes over the prospect of Disney Fox deal. Oh, Disney, Fox. What? Are we going to have to stop watching Fox?
No, the Fox pulled out their major news organizations out of that deal. I think it was just the other portions of their business.
Teen robbery ring hits a Chicago massage spas. Chicago is approaching 600 murders this year. Really an ongoing massacre in a gun-controlled cities. In a gun-controlled city.
That whole state is in disarray. Financially,
Yes.
they're bankrupt.
Yes.
And they have this kind of crisis, epidemic of shootings, crime. Things are out of control, and you have to be out of your mind to go to a convention in Chicago because the McCormick Center is located right on the south side of Chicago. I have a friend who actually got thrown into a van and driven to a warehouse area and was beaten up and robbed. This is a real good guy, a good friend of mine. It happened to him. It can happen to anybody. He was just there on a convention.
Bug stuck in Van Gogh painting goes unnoticed for 128 years.
What's that say about Van Gogh painting?
Maybe they thought it was part of the painting.
Right, I think so. The whole thing looks like a crushed bug.
Belichick blasts ESPN as fake news. California bans pesticides near schools. Cops bust man with python in pants. Yeah, right. Yeah, I can imagine.
Let's not go there.
Let's not go there. Okay, let's not go there. Vegas steps up security ahead of rock festival. Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, well, you got to be out of your mind to go to a rock festival in Las Vegas.
Yeah. I hope it's not outdoors. Probably is, yeah. Parrot screams for help prompt emergency police visit. Zillions of stingrays gathering off Florida beach. Ryan breaks record for shutting down floor debates. Tax overhaul faces major hurdles. Cruz mistake to raise rates. Yes. Gingrich Republican majorities hang in the balance. Yeah, if they keep going, if they keep rejecting the Trump wing of shall we say, the Trump force, what shall we call it? Certainly it's going to be very bad news for Republicans next November. The kind of lesson that Republicans take from this defeat last night is going to be very, very important for the direction that America goes. Let's see what Breitbart is saying. Trump to North Korea, do not underestimate us and do not try us. He also meant that for China, not just for North Korea. Trump aborts surprise trip to DMZ because of weather. POTUS losing support from base, but few gains for Democrats, he says. Beijing Trump to visit China's Forbidden City on Wednesday. Kurdish leader, Kurds revising ties to U.S. after Trump refused support. New Yorker Senator Tom Cotton, Harvard populist champion, experts Chinese investment flowing into Brazil like a tsunami. Yeah, this is Xi Jinping. I tell you, he's trying to. He's taking over the world.
Yep.
Chicago,
all over Africa,
right?
All over South America.
Yep. President Trump serves reporter on gun control in South Korea. This was during a news conference there. Trump really stood up for gun freedom there. Some U.S. reporter tried to pin him down, but he refused. President Trump shut down a reporter's gun control stump speech in South Korea on Tuesday. He did so when NBC News' Ali Vitali asked if he would support more gun control for would-be gun purchasers. She said, "You've talked about wanting to put extreme vetting on people trying to come into the United States, but I wondered if you'd consider extreme vetting for people trying to buy a gun." Right versus privilege. You see, one is a right, the other is a privilege. Yeah? Owning a gun is a right. Coming into the United States is a privilege. Different. Civics not being taught. Trump responded by questioning the appropriateness of the question, given that it was being asked just 2 days after the heinous Texas attack, as well as the fact that it was being asked during a press conference in South Korea. He then quickly dismissed calls for more gun control and went on to praise America's ability to use guns to stop attacks like the one in Texas. In so doing, Trump stressed that gun control carries with it the threat of making it difficult for law-abiding citizens to get the guns they need to defend themselves and others. He said, with more gun control, you might not have had that very brave person who happened to have a gun or rifle in his truck go out and shoot the attacker and hit him, neutralize him. Yeah, see? And what about gun control in Chicago? Yeah, they already have gun control. And they're approaching 600 murders for the year. All right, any last words?
No, I think that's...
No? All right, that's it. Let's let the president have the last word. Yeah? If you have gun control, you won't have the kind of a guy that shot the attacker in Texas. Mm-hmm. So let's not follow Chicago. Let's follow Texas.
And if you go to church, make sure you're armed.
Amen. Thank you for joining us this morning, November 8th, 2017. This brings us to the end of this morning's broadcast. Thank you for Greg Noel coming out this morning, and thank you for everyone who tuned in. God bless, Godspeed, and may His kingdom come.